got here. Now you guys can ask questions and not be embarrassed. So this is only a few of us. All right, well, thank you for coming. So this is part 3 in our 4-part series that we're doing, and tonight's focus is on art. So were you here in the other 2 classes? No? Okay. So basically just to run through for STEAM, is it just stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Mathematics. And basically what it was about 2006, we started, all the scientific community started getting together and saying, these are the areas we're lacking in as a nation. And these are the jobs we really need to train our children for, because we're having to go overseas to get people to bring them in to do these jobs. So this is kind of an initiative that's being pushed through grade school programs and early education to get our kids start thinking about these areas: science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. So before, this used to only be called STEM in 2006. Science, technology, engineering, math. And then a couple years later, somebody said, hey, the one program that is always getting cut, that we're having fewer and fewer people in, is art. So can we add art to it? And so we got STEAM, and there was a whole initiative to get involved. There was a website to put up, let's make art part of STEAM. And finally it happened, and we got art in. So we're gonna talk tonight basically about the importance of art. I'm gonna kind of show you just how to put a cheap, quick home art kit together that you guys can always have available just to pull out of the closet at any time to do quick art projects with your kids. So that's what it's gonna be about. Feel free to ask any questions, comments, things that work for you at home that you guys do, so we can kind of all share and learn together. This is being recorded, so people will see this as well on YouTube. You guys won't have to worry about recording, just me. So, all right, so let's start off with our first one here. Why is art important? Studies show that students that participate in art at least 3 hours a day, 3 times a week, are 4 times more likely to be recognized for academic achievements, participation in math and science fairs, and to win awards for essays and creative writing. So 3 hours a day, that seems like a lot, especially for us adults. That's a lot of art. But if you combine the amount of time, especially in education, that children are spending doing art during the day, it probably adds up to about 3 hours anyway. So we think of art as painting and drawing. They're doing that, they're doing it for a good part of the day. But art can also be things like sculpting with blocks, with bricks, arranging things in a certain order so colors line up. Things that we might think more of cognitive development is actually them doing art as well. So children that participate in those things, they do better in school. So there has to be a reason for that. We're going to look at some of the areas that art helps improve. So the first one is art improves language development, and that's very crucial, especially at the ages of our children that we have in these classes right now. It provides opportunity to learn the proper terms for shapes, colors, and techniques. And you would think by the time that a child is 3 or 4, they pretty much have their shapes and colors down. They'll know their basics, you know, their squares, circles, triangles, but then you can start getting into other things like, you know, your octagons and your trapezoids, more difficult shapes like that they can start learning and implementing into their art. Colors as well. They're going to know red, green, blue, but do they know chartreuse? Do they know periwinkle? Do they know these other colors that we can start introducing them to? And then techniques. Things like brush strokes, using watercolor, molding, sculpting, compounding art, triplicates, things like that we can use within the art speech as well. Parents can initiate descriptive words to discuss their child's creation, and that's a big one. So our first class we were talked about on STEAM, we talked about asking a lot of questions. Continue asking questions of your child because it keeps their mind going. So we can initiate those descriptive words like, I see a lot of yellow in there. Does that mean that you have some happiness? Yes, I was happy when I painted. There's a lot of happiness. It looks like you were elated. Well, now you've just thrown a new word into their vocabulary that they've never heard of. You can explain it to them, and they'll start using it. They really will. They'll start using it at a young age because they understand what that means. And then feelings can be identified and discussed, and that's a really important one. Art has been used for therapy for centuries with people. So a lot of times children that have come from abusive homes or neglective homes will use art therapy programs where they will actually paint their feelings and emotions onto a paper. This is a chance for us to kind of understand where a child's coming from without them ever saying a word. So you're going to kind of have to draw that out of them. So what were you thinking when you painted this? You know, were you happy? Were you sad? I see there's a lot of blue in here. How were you feeling? And it may just be they wanted to paint with blue, so that's fine. But it might be like, well, I was sad today. This is how I felt when I did this. Well, why does this person have a mean face? Because so-and-so at school took my toy and they were mean to me and it made me sad. So it kind of helps you pull out some feelings from your children that you may not even realize were going on without them ever having to initiate it. They can just do it through crayon and paper. art improves decision making. So I don't know about you guys, but I came from a school where art was not a process, it was a product. So you went to art and you made monkey masks, or you made handprints, coffee holders, or things like that. It was products. This way of thinking through STEAM, it's all about process. It's about learning how things work. And so art involves problem solving and critical thinking. So it's not about my pig mask doesn't look like a pig. It's how can I get this mask to look the way that makes me happy, that makes me feel like I'm creative. So I put 3 ears on it. So I put 2 noses on it. So I put 6 eyes on it. That's the way that I want it. Critical thinking is, I only have 1 ear, and I wanted my pig to have 2 ears, so what do? I can take these scissors and cut this one in half, and now I have 2, and I finished my mask. So problem solving, critical thinking. Critical thinking will spill over into other areas of academics, and we've talked about that in the last classes. Things like engineering. How can I make my tower bigger? Well, I remember in art that I split this in half, so maybe I can take these blocks I have here, I can pull them apart, and I can build my tower bigger. It just spills over into those other areas. Art improves motor skills, and that's a huge one right now in early education. Motor skills are something that we have to work on every day. To us as adults, we forget the struggle that we had to go through just holding a pencil to write. For kids, that's a big thing. Most of the children now in our class hold I don't have a pencil to show you guys. Let me see. Thank you. We'll hold a pencil like this. So this is the preferred method of drawing, coloring, and writing. It takes a lot of motor skills to hold a pen within your fingers in the right way. So that's something that you can help with art. Big barrel pencils, for whatever reason, the bigger the barrel, the easier it is for them to manipulate. So that's why when you guys were in grade school and you remember the big thick crayons that you used to use, there was a purpose to those. It wasn't just to make your coloring go faster. It was to help you to have that control. Modeling with clay and Play-Doh increases muscle awareness. So they're going to understand the muscles in their hands as they're squeezing the dough, stretching it, rolling it into a ball. We just played Play-Doh today at the table before I left today, and they were having the hardest time rolling a ball. So I said, how can we do it? Some of the kids wanted to roll it in their hands. Other kids had the idea of putting it down on the table and rolling it into a ball. They used problem solving, and they understood their muscle awareness that this feels good, this works for me, so they could work that in. Here's a big one that we probably didn't think about, peeling stickers. So stickers can be a fantastic thing, or they can be a curse when you're at home. You can come home and stickers can be everywhere. But the process of peeling a tiny sticker off of a backing to stick onto something, not only is hand-eye coordination, but it's that fine motor skill ability of peeling it off, and that really helps with their development. Erasing chalk and sculpting with blocks strengthens hand-eye coordination as well. And using safety scissors promotes greater dexterity. That is a big one. Just the act of putting these fingers together to cut something, that's something that is a really hard concept, especially for 3 and under. When they get to the age of 4, they can start understanding how things work. But for 3 and under, it's really hard to do. It's just a motion of putting things together. Some kids will pick it up right away, and they'll have no problems. Others will take them months when they come into my class to get it. It's a hard thing for them to learn, but it helps promote their dexterity. All right, I'm going fast. Any questions or comments so far on that? Good, okay. Art fosters inventiveness, of course. That's what art is all about. Students can take risks in art, creating innovation. So it doesn't matter, like I said, if you're making a pig, it doesn't matter if it has 6 ears or 6 eyes or if it's blue. It's all about being imaginative. It's letting them open up their mind. We said in STEAM that we wanted to train our children to be forward thinkers. So let them think outside the box. It's okay if it doesn't look like the way Mommy and Daddy want it to look. It only matters if it's okay the way I wanted it to look. Students can not only follow directions, but they can make things better, and that kind of falls in line with that. So you, as parents, can help with that process. Your child brings you a rainbow, and it's got red, yellow, and blue on it. Of course, you're going to praise them. It's a beautiful rainbow, very well done. I like how you drew clouds around it. What would you do? What would happen if you added some green to it? Ask them that open-ended question. Not only will they add green, but then they'll think, well, I can add blue as well, and I can add purple, and it just kind of expands their learning. And art creates forward-thinking students. So again, that kind of goes with it. Today, we were coloring we had dinosaur stencils in class. So they were taking crayons, rubbing them over the top, and it was leaving an impression of a dinosaur on their paper. Well, one of the little girls in the class decided, I want to name my dinosaur, something I had never even thought about. It's a T-Rex. Everybody knows it's a T-Rex. It's obvious. She wanted to name it something different. So she drew lines on her paper. She started writing letters. It didn't spell anything, but that didn't matter. She was naming her dinosaur, and she was thinking ahead. She had created something that was her own, and she was personalizing it. So that's one of the most fantastic parts about art. Art creates a cultural awareness. When we talked about global thinking in the STEAM community, about not only solving problems at home, but solving problems worldwide. When the world does better, we do better at home. That's just the way things work. Students can see how children of different countries and backgrounds interpret the same subject. So a child in Detroit might see a painting of a bear one way, where a child in Bangladesh sees it a completely different way. A child in California might use Play-Doh to make his sculpture of a bear, while a child in Bangkok is going to use recycled bottles to make a sculpture of a bear. So they're able to see that and understand that we're both making the same thing, but we see things different. It interprets it and makes a global citizenship out of it. Students can understand a wide array of techniques used from different cultures and periods in time. And that's a big thing. We use horsehair brushes in here. So when a horse gets a haircut, they cut it off, clippings go into the bag, and then they were made into brushes. Our horsehair brushes are synthetic. It's not real horsehair. But it's the idea that once upon a time in a culture, people used to use horsehair as paintbrushes. When I explain that to the kids, I either get a ew, or they're just fascinated by it, that they get to use part of a horse to paint their picture. So that's kind of a neat technique to use. Positive differences can be seen in a country's regional art. And again, that's things like painting in Saudi Arabia is going to look different than a painting in Ireland. It's the people paint about their own culture, their own lifestyles. So a child sees that, they can kind of understand something different. We were talking about Australia last year. We were talking about Aboriginal dot art that they use, where they make dots and dashes to make lizards and kangaroos and stuff. And it was so fascinating to them to see that because it wasn't lines, it was done with dots. So they can understand that people in different countries and different cultures can use different ways to create art. Okay, so let's get down to the important part, and that's art as a career. So art is the most neglected subject in almost any school. Whenever money has to be cut, the program that usually gets cut is art. And that's because the thinking is, we don't need to spend money for our children to make pretty pictures. They can do that when they get to college, or you can work with them in that at home. People don't realize art is encompassing so many things. There is, well, I'm going to get into those in just a minute. So let's look at the numbers and then we'll get into the careers that surround it. So illustrators. These are people who do children's books, comic books, pages for adult books like maps. They can earn $150 to $500 per page on a single project. Now, $150 may not seem like that much, but if you consider it's per page, a book illustrator can do 2 to 3 pages a day. So that's making some serious money. Comic book artists can do a page or 2 a day, so they're making $1,000 a day doing these pages. Now they go project to project, so you could have a bunch of projects at once and then not get any for 3 or 4 months, so it kind of evens out, but it's good pay for the work that they're doing. Art and music professors earn around $72,000 per year, so that's not chump change, especially coming out of college, if you can get a job like that. It's pretty good pay. High school art teachers start at around $38,000, and that's kind of on the low end here in Arizona. Other states actually give you a lot more. Unfortunately, Arizona is on the lower end of those, but about $38,000 a year. And then graphic designers start around $51,000 per year, and that can be things like graphic design for websites, video game designs, television music videos, ads, starting off at $51,000. So you're not going to make minimum wage as an artist, and I think that's what a lot of people want to tell you when you go to school. Personally, for me, I'm an artist. I grew up as an artist. Believe it or not, my first job was, I didn't want to be a teacher starting off. That came later on in life. I want to be a comic book illustrator from the time that I was probably in about 5th grade. So that's what I plan to do with my life. Met head on with discouragement from day one, both by family members and teachers. You're never going to make any money in art. That's just the way it is. Or you get the one where you won't make any art till you're dead, and the people appreciate it, or make any money till you're dead. People will appreciate it then, and that's when they'll buy it. So you got to hit those negative things. I got into high school, I got an art teacher that was fantastic. She was encouraging. She got me a partial scholarship to an art college. Everything was set to go, feeling good. Then the last month before I graduated high school, I saw my guidance counselor. And you guys know guidance counselors. They can be as helpful as they can be hurtful. So I went in there and he asked me, so what are you going to do, Ryan? And I said, well, I've got a partial scholarship to this art college. I want to go, I want to be an illustrator on there. Oh, Ryan, that's, I got to tell you, I'm going to be honest, I got friends in the business and you're not going to make any money doing that. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, you're going to struggle. And what's going to happen is you're going to go through this art college and then you're going to have to go to 4 years to a university anyway. So might as well go to a university and get that out of the way, and then you can do maybe art college when you get done. And I remember walking out of his office just dejected and told my father, I'm not going to go to art college anymore. I'm going to go to a college in Florida. And I got signed up for that. And then the day before I went to Florida, they called me and said, we made an error and there's not room for you till next semester. So everything was thrown in limbo. I ended up getting a job as a manager for a retail place, and my whole art bubble just popped because of discouragement. That's what I'm here to try to prevent today with you guys, with your children. Fortunately, I continued art, and here 30 years later, I got my first webcomic published this year. So it's happening for me. It's happening late, but I don't want you guys to be a discouragement. I just watched a video on Maurice Sendak. Do you guys know who he is, Where the Wild Things Are? He got a lot of discouragement in his life from his parents. Fortunately, he had a brother and sister who loved his art, loved to see the little comics he drew, and they were there to support him. And he ended up probably writing the most famous children's book of all time, Where the Wild Things Are. So it's all about encouragement. Your children can use that encouragement and it will take them places that you would not even imagine. Just by saying, I am here for you, I'm going to help you. Now that doesn't mean you can't guide them. If they say, hey, I don't know, I want to do this and I want to do that, say, hey, let's sit down, let's talk about the careers in here. Let's see if this is something you like. That's the important part. Okay, so we're going to talk about doing art at home. So anybody here, you guys can raise your hand, do you guys do art on a daily basis at home? Okay, that's what I expected. What's that?
Child or us?
You with your child at home. Yes.
My child does. But
your child, okay, good. So your child does art on a daily basis at home. It is hard to do. Time is a big issue for everybody. Yes. So I never had my parents around enough to do art at home, so I kind of had to get out my own art projects to do myself. So what I thought would be good here is to kind of run down a way that you guys can have some art supplies ready, set to go for your children to do on their own. So when you're doing things, when you're getting home from work and you got to go over your notes for the next day, they can pull out their work, their art box, and they can get things going. So we're going to talk about those. Any questions before I go on? Going so fast. Okay. Setting up an art area. Does anybody have an art area at home specifically? Okay. What does your art area look like at home? If you don't mind asking.
We have 2 art desks.
Oh, excellent.
I have crayons out for the kids. They know where to get the paper.
Excellent.
It's not usually set out for them, although sometimes it never gets cleaned up and it's set out for them.
That's part of it, yes, absolutely.
They do have to ask for scissors and
okay.
stuff like that.
And that's fine,
Ashley,
yeah.
who just helps herself to whatever she wants.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's good. That's excellent. So you've got a place where they know they can go to do art. Studies have shown when children don't have a designated place, they will do art anywhere, which means your brand new painted wall is going to be turned into an art project. If you put an easel next to it, they're probably going to go over and work on the easel. So it's setting up an area there for the children to know, this is my place to make art. Provide a quiet place for your child to create. In front of the television may be convenient, but it's not the most conducive for their creativity. So setting up a corner in the house, maybe a place in the den that's far away from everybody where they can sit and create art, that's the perfect way to do it. Studies show that soft music can stimulate creativity. So this is a big one. Music is art. We're going to look at that in just a second. So throw on a little bit of Chopin in the back when they're doing art. They're not even going to notice it, but it might help with their creativity. It helps the mind flow. They start thinking about the music when they're doing the art. Brush strokes move in, drawing strokes move in, it all works together. Multiple materials should be made available to promote free creation. That's just part of it. So making things available like pipe cleaners and pom-pom balls and little things like that that they can always have accessible to them to use in art, that's what we're looking for ideally. Scraps of paper. They cut up shape of a heart. Don't throw out those little pieces of paper that are left over. Cut them up, put them in a box. They can use them to glue on when they're making a collage. Supply washable, non-toxic materials. This is the number one, most important. You can start, underline it. Get stuff that's washable. So messes happen. They just do. I go home almost every day with some sort of paint on me when I get home, but we use nothing but washable here, so it comes right out in the washing machine. And then non-toxic, because those markers can look like suckers sometimes. And I really want to know what blue tastes like, so I'm going to put it in my mouth and find out and see. So get the kind that are non-toxic and you don't have to worry about it. Of course, they'll get a yucky taste and a blue mouth, but it won't hurt them. That's important. Most places now, most your retailers around will sell the washable non-toxic stuff. They carry that. As far as tempera paint goes, watercolors. Easels and small tables create ideal work surfaces. So we talked about that on there. Setting up a little table for them to work on, or an easel is good. Sometimes children do have a problem with an easel. Understanding, drawing, it will help strengthen their muscles and their hand-eye coordination if they do it. But they might struggle with it at first, so let them persevere at it. A lot of easels nowadays can be adjusted to where they can go from standing up down to flat. So those would be ideal for working on a table situation. And then here's one. Keep a digital camera on hand to document and send artwork to family members. Most people have those on their phones already. So your child gets done, they made this the most amazing picture of a turtle, or they put 17 different colors together to create this beautiful color swatch. Take a picture of it, send it to grandma. Not only is grandma going to be happy that she gets a piece of artwork from her, granddaughter, but the child's going to say, this was important enough for you to send it to somebody. Oh, let me make another one. So it's going to keep them going, keep them thinking, keep them being creative. All right, we're going to talk about a very important part, and this is critiquing your child's art. So this might be something that you've never even thought of. A lot of times here in class, well, every day I will say, a child comes up to me at some point and says, Mr. Ryan, look what I made. So now it's my opportunity to critique their art in a positive way that's going to help them grow. Now, let's go through each one of these things and we'll talk about them. Offer praise, but avoid words like best and prettiest. This is something that a lot of people have problems with. I have to say, even myself sometimes, like, wow, that's the best snail I've ever seen. Kids are smart. Kids are smart, and they know that they're not the best artist in the class. If there's 30 children in the class, you have a 1 in 30 chance that your child is the best artist. So there's probably someone in class that can draw better than them, that can create better than them. So when you words like, that is the best I have ever seen, in their head they're thinking, yeah, but it's not as good as Tiffany's. So it can actually have a negative effect on them. It's not something you really think about happening, but it does happen. So you use words like, that is an amazing car. Okay? You didn't say that was the best, you didn't say it was the prettiest, you didn't say it was the best that's ever been created, but you let them know that you like what they did. Point out specific details like, I like how you put orange and red together. So that's important. Sometimes children don't even know. They're just drawing on a paper because it feels good. And when they get done and they bring it to you, it is just a bunch of swirls. I've heard parents say to their kids, all you do is just make scribbles on your paper, and that is so hurtful. I've heard parents say that in this classroom sometimes. I will try to rush over and say, but look at this. They found out that they mixed yellow and blue together and they made green. Look, you can actually see the yellow and the blue and the green all next to each other. And the parents are like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So pick out specific things like that. Look at this eye that you drew on this monster right here. I like how you drew the pupil inside. And look, you put blue right around it. So now it's a blue-eyed monster. That's pretty neat. Point out specific things. Tell your child what you see. Again, they bring you scribbles, look what I made. So what I like to always do is try to figure out what it is. It's a game for me, and in the process, it gets them thinking. So today, a child brought me a picture of, looks like a green box. So I could just say, that's a green box. But I told the child, I said, that is an amazing crocodile. Is that a crocodile? And he turned the page around and he looked at it. He said, yeah, it's a crocodile. I said, I can see his mouth. Look at this line right here. Is that his mouth? Yeah, that's his mouth. And look at this part. Is that his tail? Yeah, that's his tail. Yeah. Walks over to his friend. Look at this crocodile I made. So in the process of doing that, you get their mind to think. Now when he goes back to the drawing board and he wants to draw a real crocodile again, he's going to start drawing the box, the mouth, the tail, just like he learned. It's all about helping that creative process go. Ask questions like, what would happen if you added some blue? We talked about that earlier there. What would happen if you take a picture and you color it with marker and it's just scribbles of red and green and yellow? What would happen if we take a water bottle and we spray it down? What's going to happen? All the colors run. Wow, it's amazing. Get your child's permission first. Don't go get a bottle and be like, no, my art I made. So ask them, what would happen? Let them spray it down. Let them see the process. It's going to create that forward thinking as far as art goes. And then realize that even scribbles tell a story. Ask your child what they were thinking when they made their creation. So again, that goes back to feelings. What were you thinking? How did you feel when you made this? This looks like you were really happy. This one looks like you were a little sad. They'll correct you. No, I wasn't sad. I just wanted to draw this. But ask your child, what were you thinking? That's going to allow them to create more. My favorite artist is Vincent van Gogh. Compared to Leonardo da Vinci, his art was not even on par. Now, he was a good artist. He was definitely a good artist. But unlike Da Vinci, there is not a single painting Van Gogh has done that you can't tell how he was feeling when he did it. Those bright, vibrant flowers on the sunflowers, those deep, dark blues on Starry Night, you can tell he was happy here. He was sad here. He was very emotional when he did this. Van Gogh's story was he almost went broke because he bought so much paint. He would paint with emotion. It would be so thick across his canvas that he would run out and have to go back the next day and buy more paint. So that's what we're looking for with our kids. Let them use their emotions to create their pictures, and they're going to make beautiful, wonderful things. All right, any questions or comments so far with that? Good, all right, we're moving along here. So let's talk about music. Music is art. Music is considered a fine art. It's probably not something that we think a lot about, but art and music go hand in hand. Allowing your child to experiment with music opens up creativity. Writer's blocks happen to us as adults. They happen all the time. You're writing something for work, you just can't think of the right term or the word, you just sit there and thinking. Maybe you're writing a story, maybe you're writing a critique on somebody else's work, you just don't know what to do. Imagine if you stepped away from the table, you turned on the music and you just danced for 3 minutes. And then you sat back down. Okay, my head's clear, where am I at? And then you can continue working. It works that way for a child as well. So, they're playing at the table. Sometimes this happens in class. Johnny wants this toy and Mikey wants this toy and they're going back and forth with each other and other kids are over here and this is happening. Break time, everybody over to the carpet, let's turn on music and let's dance. And they get over and they dance as hard as they can. They go, okay, good job guys. They go right back to the tables and they just jump in and start playing. It's taking that break, letting your creativity flow, just getting it all out of you. It feels good and it opens up creativity. Creating homemade instruments allows them to use one art form to create another. So you can put both these together. We're going to talk about making some music instruments in just a second, but something like we're going to make a shaker. Let's get out the paints and paint the tube that we're going to put the beans in to make the shaker. You're using art to create a musical instrument. It's a great way to marry those concepts together. All right, so we're going to talk about creating an art kit. Anybody have an art kit at home already? All right, excellent. Excellent, very good. All right, we got some in here. You guys can critique my art kit. Tell me if there's something that you have or that we should add to it. So, this is my art kit right here that I have. I keep this at school. Sometimes I have to make art in here, doing things for the window and things like that. So, I have a couple different art kits around the class. But this is one that I would keep in my home for my nephews when they would come over to do art. It's just a simple little kit. It can be stored in a closet, and it's out of the way, no fuss, no muss, until it's time to do art, and then they know where it's at and they can bring it out. So I put on here to use a tackle box or an organizer container to keep supplies tidy. Tackle boxes are great for when you have older kids, when you want to put in those little wiggly eyes and those little sequins. You can separate those into the little dishes. I recommend, if you can, getting a see-through one, because it's really easy to say, oh, there's the Play-Doh I want, and they can open it up and get it out. Otherwise, everything's going to be out all over the floor. So that's up to you. Either way works. Let's open it up and let's talk about some of the things inside. Now I want to say that I have taught this class before to a group of parenting aides that were catering to low income families. They basically had no money at all. So I was teaching them how to teach their parents what to do around the house for next to no money. This art kit I have right here, about $18 to $20 for everything, including the box that's in here. So it's an affordable art kit. A lot of the stuff you may already have around the house and not even have to pay for anyway. So let's talk about free materials we had talked about earlier. Things like pipe cleaners. Pipe cleaners, again, not only great for sculpting, they can be cut in half and glued to paper to make three-dimensional art. Three-dimensional art is huge. It's a big deal. For them to be able to understand I can glue something on there and then feel the texture when I'm done, that's very big as far as their development goes. So pipe cleaners are great. Let's see, tempera paint. So this is washable project paint. This is something that you may want to keep in the box, the holder. If you have white carpet, probably not want to keep in the box, but it is washable and it will come out. So that's the stuff you got to look for, and this is non-toxic too as well. Let's see, dollar store stuff. These are modeling beads. Has anybody ever played modeling beads before? Okay, one of the funnest things ever. Modeling beads is tiny little styrofoam beads like you would get in a beanbag that are held together with like a glue substance. So you can squish them together and mold them and sculpt them, and it's a great texture feeling for them. It's a lot of fun. You can leave it out, it won't air dry, so a lot of fun. Dollar store. All right, pom-pom balls as well, great for three-dimensional art. Sequins as well. Of course, you're going to have your colored pencils in there. Colored pencils are great for them doing stencils. We do use a lot of colored pencils in class for that. They can use the regular, just lead pencils, but colored ones are good because not only can they do the stencil, the outline of something, when they're done, they can color it in. And in the process, they kind of made their own product. So they can do a bird design and then color in however they want and have a beautiful design. So colored pencils are a big thing. And then, of course, washable markers. Classic marker set right there to have. Again, younger children, you can get the big barrel ones, easier for them to hold. They even make some that are triangle shape. Have you guys ever seen the triangle shaped pencils? Okay, those are ideal, especially for children that are just learning how to use pencils the right way. So they have those as well. All right, let's talk about Play-Doh. Probably my favorite art tool there is. There's so many things you can do with Play-Doh. First of all, you don't even need to buy it. You can make it at home. I think it's just a couple ingredients. You got flour and salt and water and a couple other things. It'll go bad after a while, but that's okay because that's just your opportunity to make more. If you get it at the store, you can get, not Play-Doh brand and off-brand, but you can get it at the dollar store for $1 for a couple containers and have that on hand. So Play-Doh, let's talk about that. On the surface, it just looks like dough. That's it. For adults, it kind of loses our fun when we're a child. There's so many neat things you can do with it. First of all, does anybody play with Play-Doh at home with their child? Okay. Do you guys sing songs when you do it? No? All right, here's one of our favorite things to do in class. This is called the Play-Doh song. I'm going to sing for you guys, so please bear that in mind. All right, it goes like this. We take our little hands and go squish, 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 squish. We take our little hands and go squish, squish, squish in the silly spider's room. Now we can add that on. We take our little fingers and go poke, poke, poke. We take our little fingers and go pinch, pinch, pinch. We take our hands and go roll, roll, roll. We can take our hand and go smash, smash, smash. Now they're learning all these techniques for their dexterity, for their fine motor skills. To them, they're just singing a song. So it doesn't matter if I even have time to sing the song or not. As soon as the Play-Doh hits the table, Mr. Ryan, can we sing the Play-Doh song? All right, everybody, let's sing, and you can get into doing that. So that's something fun. Play-Doh is great for impressions. They can get out their little plastic toys, their dinosaurs, put footprints in it, leave it out, let it dry. They can paint it, so it's good for that as well. It's also good for molding, for strengthening hands as well. A lot of children use this in therapy. If they have problems with muscles in their hands, Play-Doh's a good one for them to use to squeeze. Helps bend that out. All right, so that is Play-Doh. Also in here we have some finger paints. Again, washable, non-toxic finger paints. Some children can't hold a brush. Some children prefer not to hold a brush. So using your finger is fine on there. They can draw pictures, they can make beautiful designs, they can draw actual things like rainbows and clouds. Lots of things you can do with finger paint, and they have that feeling of finger to surface rather than holding a pen or a brush or something in between. So excellent for those. If you're going to have a paint that you're going to leave in the box for them to use, I recommend washable watercolors. These come out real easy if they get spilled on the carpet. They're really easy for the child to use. You can put a little spray bottle inside and they can just spray them to get them wet to use. The only problem is they come with a very small brush. So that might be a problem for some children holding that. That's okay, just put a bigger size brush in with the box for them to use. Again, very cheap, under $1 for this. All right, let's see. We have glue stick. So Bottled glue is great to use when you're supervised. If they're not being supervised, if you're washing dishes and they're doing art, use a glue stick. It's washable. They drop it on the ground. One spot you can wipe up with the rag. It's not going to hurt anything. They make these large size ones, which are fantastic because, like I said, for their hands at this point, when they're holding things like this, it's easier for them to use. You also get a lot more glue in it. Purple ones are great that they make for school now because they can actually see where the glue is going and then it disappears right away once it dries. So that's a definite for an art box. So these are the two kinds of safety scissors that we keep in here. These are your normal average scissors here. They do have a sharp edge on them. So if a child is to put their finger in and cut it, they will cut themselves, but they won't poke themselves with that. So this might be for a little bit older child, later 3s, 4s, 5s, they'd be fine with this. Younger than that, there are these kind of scissors that are connected here at the top. Now we talked about dexterity issues for a child that's, you know, from 3 and under that they might have. Since these are already connected together, they don't have to worry about opening them up wide and closing them. They're already connected, so they can make little cuts with them as they go. These are made by Fiskars. You can buy these at Walmart, Target, any retailer will carry these. All right, and then a brush set. So this little case here is just a reused toothbrush case. We use it for brushes, so when they're wet, you can stick them in and they can dry. You have just your regular brush here available to use. One I highly recommend are foam brushes. These things you can get for, I think it's like $5, you can get like 30 or 40 of them. They're just cheap plastic. Have them around all the time. But the foam holds the paint better than a regular brush. They can use broad strokes, and then they can use the flat wedge edge to draw lines, so excellent brush. And then we got a couple just different little size ones of those. Here are the triangle ones that I was talking about. They also make brushes as well. This is a triangle horsehair brush. So again, the triangle on there lets them have that position with their fingers. One on the top, one on the side, one on the bottom. So they learn how to hold that pencil the correct way and hold that brush as well. And then of course construction paper, you want to have that. Construction paper is great, it's heavy duty. A lot of times when children are coloring on regular computer paper, it'll just go through the paper. Paper will rip. Construction paper is better to use, it's more durable. It's more fun. And it's also great for cutting as well because they get that feel of cutting through that grain with the scissors as well. And then paper plates. So much stuff you can do on a paper plate. First of all, it holds your paint, which is great. Second of all, it holds your glue. So it's a great plate to use. Third, it can be a holder for your Play-Doh. Again, if children have something in front of them like a tray or a dish, they're more likely to do their project in that than on the table. So they'll do their Play-Doh on that. It's an excellent tray. We took a couple, taped them together last week during Space Week. We put a gelatin cup on top and it was a perfect UFO. We took them outside and threw them, so creating science with art too. It was a lot of fun. So that's just the basic necessities that I keep in the art box. It's all stuff that they can use on their own. They can pull it out anytime. If mom and dad are busy, that's okay, because I know where my art box is. I can get out, take it to my table, and I can create something. So there you go. Any questions or comments on that so far? Anything you guys have that I didn't include in the box? Got most everything in there? All right. Excellent. Very good. I'm glad that some of you have already got that set up and going. Let's talk about art items from around the house. So art items don't just have to be bought in the store. It might be something you already have in your cupboard. Chocolate pudding. Who thinks of chocolate pudding when you think of art? It's probably not something that we do, right? Chocolate pudding makes a great finger paint. So you get out some white paper, give them a cup of chocolate pudding, they can dip their finger in, and they can create with it. They may just make blobs, but they can make shapes, they can do letters. Fantastic. It smells good when they're done, so you let it dry. So chocolate pudding's a good one. Shaving cream is a big one that we use. Shaving cream is something that I recommend to parents all the time. Not only is it good for art, but it's good for math. It's good for learning letters. You just take a little spot on your table, put some shaving cream on it, let them smooth it out. They can draw pictures with their fingers. They can draw letters. They can draw numbers. Anything that takes them away from a paper when they're working on letters or numbers is a good thing. That's a really good thing. They're going to get plenty of that when they go to grade school. So let them use their fingers to draw their letters, to draw their numbers. It'll seem like a game to them. It's a good one. Popsicles. This is a good summer one. Going outside with the paper. Take popsicles out. They'll melt, especially ones like cherry that have that darker color. They'll melt. They can hold the stick and they can draw with it on their paper. It's a lot of fun, and it's something that they don't even think about. So it's like we've done in this class a lot. They're like, what? Cotton balls is a big one as well. Pulling apart a cotton ball is a difficult motor skill at this age for a lot of the children to learn, especially 3 and under. They don't understand quite how that works. So having them do that, having them strengthen those muscles of pulling the cotton ball apart, they can use it to make snow, spider webs, clouds, makes a lot of neat designs with it. They can just stretch it apart and glue it right to their paper. Another one is Q-tips. When I was teaching this class again for parent aids for lower income families, I told them, they can't afford brushes, that's fine. Your brushes are right here. I taught a art class many, many years ago from ages 1.5 up to 5. And all we used to do painting with were Q-tips. That was it. So they hold the paint, they can use them, they're very light, they can use them to draw. You guys have these around the house probably already, so there you go. And then of course dried pasta. You know the pasta necklaces, we all did that in school. That's always fun. But making 3-dimensional art is the biggest part of it. They can glue it to their papers. They can line up the pieces to make pictures, cars, wheels, however they want to do it. So stuff you already have around the home. And then we have homemade instruments. So we talked about music being part of art when they want to take a break from their easel or their table to do some music. It's so much more fulfilling for a child to make something with mom and dad for they need to buy at the store. I know we just bought my 9-year-old little nephew a whole entire music set that had the drums and the maracas and the horn and everything plastic in it. And of course, all he wanted was the box. So he played with the box. So we're like, we're just going to set this aside, and you know, when he gets older, we'll let him do it. But making instruments with mom and dad, that's the important thing. So let's talk about rainmakers. This is a little one right here. So actual rainmakers are just long pieces of wood that termites have eaten out, and they hollow out the middle, and then Aborigines, Native Americans, they would put rice inside, seal off the ends, and then the process of the rice going through all those little curves inside would make the sound of rain. Well, you don't probably have a handle full of termites at home to make your own, so a paper towel tube works just fine. You can fill it full of rice, and they can use it as a shaker. They can pour it back and forth. We talked about rain today, obviously, with rain outside with the kids, so we used a rainmaker. We made a little bit bigger one that we had in here. So just something easy like that. They used their art, of course. We wrapped it with green paper, and they glued little tissues around it to make it pretty, so using one art form to create another. All right, fill small dry water bottle with pinto beans and tape the top of the bottle to keep it in place to create a shaker. So we have a large one right here that we use with the kids. So when they play their instrument time, this is always made available and it's always used. So they'll go over and grab the maracas and the rainbow, you know, wands and the wood blocks, but then somebody always grabs a shaker to use. So something that we made together in class, and it's important to them, special to them. So there you go. And then a horn, I don't have one here, but a horn is just basically a paper towel tube. You get a red Dixie cup, cut a hole in it, and then tape it to the end, and then they can blow it just like a horn. Makes a loud sound. They love it. One of their favorite things. So you can make a whole band at home without ever having to buy a single instrument in the store. All homemade. All right. And it's all about the process of art. It's okay if it doesn't look like anything. Now I know that everybody wants their child to be a Da Vinci. I understand that. But the probability of that happening is, well, there was only one Da Vinci. So let your child create, and it'll turn into something eventually. You know, I told you the story about the parents just saying, all you did is just throw scribbles on your paper. All you did was just throw paint on your paper. Well, tell that to Jackson Pollock, one of our greatest artists ever. All he did was throw splashes of paint on a canvas, and now his stuff is going for millions of dollars on there. Art is subjective. So if your child brings you something that it looks like both eyes are on the same side of the pig's head, it worked for Pablo Picasso. So let your child make their own art and then appreciate it for what it is. It's about trying different mediums until they feel right. So give your child paint, finger paint. I don't like finger paint. I don't like the way it feels on my finger. Fine, let's try crayons. I don't like crayons, I don't like the way they feel. It's okay, let's try Play-Doh. Oh, I love Play-Doh. All right, well there's their medium. Now they're using Play-Doh. Now in a few months you can enter plasticine clay. So now they're using clay to sculpt things. And they get a little bit older, you can use hard brick clay. And now they're using tools to cut away the clay. It's just a progression on what they've already done. Art is freedom, so leave out the constant structure. Just let your child create whatever they want. That is the one thing I want you guys to take away from this. Let your child make what they want and appreciate that. There's nothing wrong with encouraging them. Definitely. When they've done something good, encourage it. Seth MacFarlane, I don't know if you guys know him. Sorry, not Seth MacFarlane. That's Family Guy. Todd McFarlane. Todd McFarlane. Oh my goodness. Sorry, Todd. Todd McFarlane. I don't know if you guys have heard of him or not, but McFarlane Toys. He's had stores around here. There used to be one by the AMC Theater up there. He is a local creator who's also the president of Image Comics. He created a little comic called Spawn years ago. And he did an art class that I got to sit in on. He is fantastic. One of the best ever. Just his detail was it was amazing. And he said something that I will never forget in that class. He said, not everybody can be a fantastic artist, but everybody can be fantastic at least one thing. So if your child can make hands, encourage them to make the best hands they can draw. If your child can draw people's eyes where they have green around them and they draw eyebrows on them, encourage them. Beautiful eyes, draw me some more. If they can, like in Tom McFarlane's case, his was capes. He could draw amazing capes. So he said, you know what? I'll draw a stick figure, and he drew a stick figure on the board, and it just looked like a stick figure, and then he drew this amazing, elaborate cape coming off of it, and it looked like a beautiful work of art. So encourage whatever your child is good at, and they'll continue to do it until they're perfect at it, or at least incredibly good at it. So that's the important thing to do. All right, thank you guys for coming. Again, art is probably the low man on the totem pole when it comes to STEAM. People just don't think of it as a vibrant career, but it is. It encompasses so much. One of my closest friends is a software developer. Art is in his life every day. They have to get people for web design. They have to get people to do video. They have to get people to do video games and things like that. The jobs are out there. There's a lot of them. So there are careers for art, definitely careers. Thank you guys for coming. If you have any questions, oh, we got one question here.
I just wanted to point. I've been coming out to the different things that have been offering, like the science, the technology, engineering, and art now. And it's really weird because when I grew up as a kid, we didn't do any of this stuff. So it's like, for me personally, it's like learning stuff for the first time, because that really wasn't important. It was just, here's your science book, here's your chemistry book, read it, look at the pictures, you're done, you move on. But what I've noticed is, like, with all of this right here, is like, you really have to really be involved with your kid and participate. You can't just say, here, this is science, you gotta do this. You gotta, like, actually give them the science, experiment, and work with them, and bring them into the science or the art or the engineering and technology, and then that way they feel comfortable doing it themselves. Absolutely. Because if I just give him something that say, hey, this is science, this is something that's important for you to learn, you know, check this out, this could really help you. They're like, huh? Yes. What? Yes. They're not interested in it. But if you show them and participate with them, then they start getting a smile on their face, and something that they want to do more and more and more. And like the art thing, we just completed an art project. I never did art. I never was good at art. I hated art. And and so I just last week we just completed an art project with my son. It took me like forever, it seemed like, but it was only 2 weeks. He's a Cars fan, so we created a piston cup. Oh, very nice. And it took, like I said, it took 2 weeks, but for me, it felt like it took forever. Right. And cutting stuff out and doing that. And I noticed that by him helping and just watching and seeing how we were making this piston cup, he got more and more into art, and now he's wanting to color. And before he had he didn't want to do art. Art was the worst thing that, you know, he kind of felt like art. And him and I were kind of together with art. We don't like art. But now he's like, oh, this is kind of cool. I can make something that I really like. And that's going to stay with him forever. He is never going to forget that piston cup that you guys made together. That's going to be, like I said, I can remember things when I was 4 or 5 years old that I did with my father and my mother that I can remember to this day. That stuff sticks with the kid. Going to the store and buying a Crayola art kit, that's great, that's fantastic. Sitting down and doing art with your child, that's irreplaceable. Irreplaceable. They will never forget that. And you created something new in him. You opened up a new door for him to use. So if he decides to do science, that's fantastic. He's going to implement those art techniques when he does science. That's just the way STEAM works. That's what's the wonderful part about it.
I think a big part is retraining ourselves as adults, because we were trained color in the lines. It's not good if it doesn't look perfect and exactly like the model. And so it's stepping back and really having to bite your tongue sometimes and think about it differently.
I remember in 3rd grade getting my crayons taken away for coloring outside the lines. You know, that's punished for that, really? We tell our children to think outside the lines and then they do and we take away the crayons. So, you know, it's just, again, that's a great thing. That's the way we learn. That's the way school was for us. We were given the book, like you said, and told to learn it. It means something to us. We taught ourselves, but it doesn't mean everything. When your mom and dad are there, or aunt and uncle, or brother and sister, and they explain it, just like with Maurice Sendak, with his brother and sister saying, we like your art, keep doing it, we're going to help you. Created the greatest children's book of all time. So give that encouragement to your children, and they will take it with them forever, and pass it on to theirs as well. All right, yes, question?
One is a logistics question, one is an overall general question. We have a 2 1/4-ish child.
Okay.
Would you alter the art box in any way or what would you change or modify?
Yeah, I don't think a child that's in the 2s would be using scissors yet. I would wait till they get up into 3s to start using that with them. Play-Doh, you could definitely use under supervision with them. Obviously, all these things for a child that's 2 1/2, you probably want to have supervision on because the Play-Doh can go into the mouth and it won't hurt them food-wise, but it can be a choking hazard. So you want to keep your eyes with that. You can think about other things outside of that. Sculpting doesn't have to be Play-Doh and clay. Sculpting can be those large Duplo blocks. You know, we can build things with that. So that's a great art one for them to do. Sensory is big for a child that's 2. They want to feel that stuff in their hands. So finger painting, ideal for 2 1/2-year-old. Brushes, they may not be ready for yet to hold in their hand. But they could do the pudding finger painting or just regular finger painting. That's what they want to feel. So that's what I would go for, more sensory type items for them.
And that leads me to my second question.
Yes.
I think I don't know if other people are feeling that pressure of integrating technology into even art projects. So do you think it's important to integrate technology in some of the the apps where they can draw their own art, or is that something to wait till later?
I do it right now in class. We do it at least once a week. There's an application that we have. I bring a larger iPad into class, an application that we have where they can go on and draw with their fingers. So we will do a letter time or a number time where they can get up and start drawing their letters on it. Technology is not going to go away. It's going to actually adapt to a younger and younger age as we go. What you want to keep them away for is technology that they're not ready for yet. So they're not going to be able at 2 1/2 to figure out how to open an app themselves and things like that. But if you can get that whiteboard program on there where they can use their finger on glass, that's a sensory for them. So they'll learn how to do that as well. So yeah, you could definitely at 2 1/2-year-old start them on an application like that. And remember, you want to limit it. So screen time for 2 1/2-year-old, technically for anybody under 2 years old, it's 0 screen time period. 2 1/2, you can start doing 30 minutes a day with them. You know, break it up into 2 15-minute sessions or something like that. So definitely, yeah, excellent question. All right, anybody have any other questions? All right, thank you guys so much for coming. We got one more to go next month. We're going to do mathematics, and that'll finish out STEAM for us. So thank you guys for coming.